Hello, my name is Veronica and welcome into the Learning Lab. And in today's lab, I'd like to share with you what I've been doing in my creative space. So come on in and let's get started. During my downtime, when I haven't been teaching, I've been in my creative space trying to get it organized, get everything labeled in the proper place where it needs to be. In that process, I came across this book that I picked up from Michael's, I don't know how many years ago, but it's Stunning Stamping Techniques from hot off the press, but the designer and author is none other than herself, Miss Dee Grunick. So I was like, oh, yeah, I remember getting this, and I think I remember doing some of the techniques. So I'm just kind of flipping through the book, looking at some of the things Dee had created, and then I was like, yep, wait, what's that? And I realized I had tried some of her pop-up and explosion cards. So when I opened this, I was like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. Dee said do it at 8.5 by 8.5. So I must have had a great time playing around, because what I did was, I did some cutting around there. And this was just freehand me playing. And that's why I'm calling this my explosion card on steroids. I don't know if I ever really did anything else with this technique that I had come up with. I also had another card where I had cut a big butterfly on there, but I think I was just playing around when I first got the book, took these, threw them inside, closed it, and yeah. So I decided, I stopped what I was doing in my creative space and started to create. So let me share with you some of the things I came up with using this pop-up explosion card technique. This is one I created using a 6x6 piece of paper, and you can see once folded how small it becomes. But to do that, I use my Martha Stewart Country Butterfly Punch. And so once I punched that out, I just took that and put it onto my paper. So for example, once you fold it, it'll look like this. And at that open edge is where you want to put it to trace. So I put that on my paper, traced it out, decided where I wanted my stopping point to be. And then I just took my scissors and cut from each corner up to where I wanted to stop. So when you put this on a really small, let's say mini album, you have your front all decorated with another butterfly that you've colored in, that when you pull that up, it's a beautiful little explosion right there on that page. And that's why I'm calling this explosion cards on steroids, because I'm going to share with you some more. The possibilities are indeed limitless. So there's that one. Now this is one that I did using this artsy stamp set. Let me pull that in. And it's a stamp and cut. So I actually used this part and I put it on here and put this through my die cutter. Now, depending on the power of your machine, it may not go through all of them, or you may have to shim it just a little bit. So I put it through. Now this is just text weight paper, copy paper. And then I took and freehand trying to cut around the butterfly to get rid of some of those edges that I didn't like once you opened it. And it actually turned out okay. And this is from an 8x8 piece of paper. And you can see the size that that folds down into compared to the 6x6 piece. So I'm still experimenting. And then I went into a set of heart dies from Elizabeth Crafts Designs. And it's actually an ornament set, but it also comes with a solid die to cut out. So I pulled that one off. And I put that on here, ran it through my die cutter, and it cut this out. But again, I had those edges that stick out, and I didn't like that. So I just took my little die and laid it back on and kind of traced. I should have traced probably, but instead I freehand it. I did not put it back. I just did a freehand. But again, when you pop that open, you've got all of those hearts. And this was this still 8x8? Yes, looks like it was still an 8x8 piece. I must have cut off my size on that one. But that, let's come out a little bit. So there we go. I thought, wow, okay, this is really cool. Why did I never pursue this when I did this from Dee's book probably 10 or 12 years ago? Who knows? So then I was starting to get on a roll. So then I started to get a little bolder. So I took this, put it on here, and now you can trace this if you like. But I put it on here, and I only die cut the top part. So I did a partial on that. Then when it came out, I put this over here, put it down, and I traced around on that side. Then I also went over here and traced around on the other side. And that's how you end up with those little corners if you don't cut them off. But in this case, I didn't want to trim that out because I wanted the effect of all of the butterflies. Or if you don't want to use a die cutter, you can just trace this because it's a nice solid shape. And then you can fussy cut by hand. But when you pop this open, there you go. And this is from an 8x8. I just thought, wow. Wow, wow, wow. So if you have punches at home, you don't have a die cutter, you only have punches, then just punch that out and keep rotating it around here to get what you want. Now, again, couldn't leave well enough alone. So I pulled out some of my other Martha Stewart punches. This is a topiary set for the around the page punch. And again, for this one to work, you have to start out with a perfectly square piece of paper. And this one happened to be 8.5 by 8.5. So you would need to fold your paper first. I went all around to punch. And when I put it back together, this is what I had. So now when you open it on your page, you're going to get this beautiful explosion card that's just breathtaking in the decorations. And again, this can go inside of your card cover so that when you open it up, that's what's inside the card. Or again, you can put it on your scrapbook page layout. So now, how do you fold this? Let me pull out a clean sheet and we'll go through it. I am going to come in with a 9x9 size sheet of paper just so you can get an idea of what the different sizes is. I'm going to come in with a 9x9 sheet of paper just so you can get an idea of what the different sizes look like. And there are several ways to fold it, but this is what helps me. I'm going to go ahead and fold this at the halfway point. Now, you don't need a lot of fancy tools for this. I tell my students, once you get this lined up where you want, go down the center to that center point, then go from the center out to your edge and the center back out to your edge. The best tool you have is the back of your thumbnail. Take that in order to flatten that out. So if you don't have those beautiful bone folders that everybody's ranting and raving about, you're going to be okay. All right, so now let's open this because I know it folds backwards when you are supposed to do it. Once you're done, they tell you to fold this part going backwards. So then we are going to now do our diagonal. Once you get that where you want it, hold it at the tip, come straight down, and then you want to go out from side to side. Take a look at it. Make sure it's lined up as well as can be, which looks good to me. Then I'm going to use my thumb, the back of my thumbnail. Bring that towards me. This is why manicures don't work for me. I'm all in with the hands. Now we've got our diagonal fold. We're going to make another diagonal fold going in the opposite way. So I have a diagonal fold here. I have this one that we put down the center, and now I want to go in the opposite direction with my fold. You can do both diagonals first and then come back and fold it in half. I just feel like it helps me with my paper. So I'm going to come down again to the center point, go out to the side, and then go out to the other side, and I'm running into my notebook here. And then again, we're going to use our back of our thumbnail Use the back of our thumbnail as our bone folder. And I love doing this with the kids because all the tools they need are right there in their hands. So now we're going to open this. Remember, that's the one we folded backwards. So in order to get it to come together, you're going to naturally push in the sides. It'll start moving on its own. And then, let's see, let me make that crease a little creasier. Is that a word? Okay, it is now. And there we go. We now have our template. So the second thing you need to do is to fold in these tips, meaning these tips. So you're going to take one, find your center point, which mine is here. And my center point that I'm talking about is just simply where this meets. That's your center. So bring this corner into your center point. And you are going to do that on all sides. Let's flip it over. Putting my nail there because it's telling me here's your center or as close to your center. And I still come out to here and press to either side. And then just reinforce all of your folds. And now you're ready to go. So we're going to now reopen this back. You can do them one at a time. It's a personal preference, but you're going to take this and push it in to the inside. Let's do that over here. So this little fold out, you're going to open it, and you see where that crease is here, and there's one right here. Just going to press that in to the inside. Let's do that over here. Press it in. And press that in. And now you have your little house. Reinforce those folds again using your bone folder or the back of your nail if you don't have a bone folder. Yep, and look at what I've done to my thumb. Yeah, this is why I don't have manicures. And now you have your lovely pop-up. When you're at this point, this is where you can bring in your around the edge punch and you can cut what you want. Now, I do want to share with you something that I did that I thought, okay, again, this is the explosion card on steroids. So here is a 9x9 sheet. I have also done 2 others that are 9x9 also. Okay, so we have all of these and they are 9x9. Now I have to tell you I messed up when I was gluing these, so I had to pull it apart because I had done it wrong. So let's say we have these, and here's another technique that you can do with them. So what I'm going to do is take the one on the very bottom, and you can use some tape on yours. I'm going to use my wet glue because it's handy, and this is just a simple technique that I'm sharing with you. And then I'm going to take my other one and put it right on top. Get the glue worked into there. Now you're going to take time, of course, yourself and do a much more efficient job on yours. Then I'm going to do the same thing on here. You can stop at 2 because I think you see where I'm going with this. So when you pull this up on your paper for the first time, and then see, that's where I messed up with my glue. So when you pull this up on your paper for the first time, you're going to get that. Then you can put another little tab because this is, remember, this is anchored, and you can get another explosion. And if you want 3, you can do it again and get a 3rd explosion. But that's where I was going with that. If you now take it and put a 3rd one on top. So you can really go nuts and get a lot of information in a very small space. And these are the kinds of techniques that I like doing with my students. For example, if we're drawing things and taking notes, that you can have a ton of information in a small space and it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. So if you're in the car with mom and dad going to the grocery store, you can take this with you and do your review because it's not a huge notebook that you're having to spread out. And when you're done, all of it collapses right back down into something that's manageable. And the reason I did this is because I'm 7 of 8 kids. When we're all sitting around the table working, there wasn't a whole lot of space. So when I started teaching, I kept that in mind. And so I tried to give kids ways to review and study material that could be encapsulated into a small space. So that was one thing that drove this for me. So I like this a lot. You can get a lot into one small space. So in the end, once you have gotten everything glued together, you can also do these with magnets or a pull string that will keep pulling them up. But let's imagine that this bottom part is what's taped down to your page. You can tie this down with a ribbon, again, a magnet, and then you lift. And you can put a magnet here to hold, and then you would lift and it'll automatically fold down. Put another magnet here to hold, and then another lift tab, and there you are. Yeah, that's where I messed up. I glued it in the wrong spot, but there it is. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, when I was playing with this, if you take it and pull it around, you can also get a great Christmas or Halloween or fall harvest or birthday decoration, and you can put things all over them. And I just thought that gives you a lot of real estate in just a small space. I do have a couple of more to share with you. Now this one is really cute. I did this with some paper from Flavia, and that was from QVC from years and years and years ago. Yeah, because QVC hasn't been on the air now for what, 10, 11 years? So this was some Flavia paper that I had bought when I was making an album for my son, and I folded this in order to get a lot of real estate. So I want to go through how I did this. Now I'm starting out with an 8x8 sheet of paper. And if you have a scoreboard, please go ahead and use your scoreboard. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make my halfway mark, and that's going to be at 4. And now I need to make, turn it around and score it again the other way. So you're going to do, well, I mean, the paper is squared, but you're going to do a horizontal, a vertical, and then you're going to turn it and do a horizontal at 4. Or if you're using an 8.5 by 8.5 sheet of paper, then it's at 4 1/4. But this is a good way to use up that 8x8 paper that you have that you don't want to cut into. This is a great way to do it. You know what? And let me stop right here, because there's something I wanted to do first before I started scoring this piece. Well, you know what? Let me go ahead and finish scoring it. Since I've started, it's going to mess up everything if I don't. And then here, you only need one diagonal. So I'm putting it on the line that I've made on my scoring board. And that's it. But I am going to get a fresh piece of paper because I wanted to do something else for you. Now, I do want to do some stamping on this. And now I have to tell you, when I first started out with crafting, I did not own a lot of things. I simply bought either white or light colored cardstock. I invested in some good inks and some good stamps, and I would create my own backgrounds. And one of those ink pads, of course, was the rainbow one, which if you're using a water brush, you put this out on some plastic and you can pick up each one of those colors. So even within there, you have all of those colors of the rainbow available to you, and you don't have to buy a whole lot of different colors. You can get a myriad of colors. And now, updated, Hero Arts has the ombres, which aren't the rainbow, but they give you a nice selection of colors in there, which is great if you're starting out. Having a nice good black ink is also wonderful. And then this one, which I haven't used before, it's kind of a pinky color. I might pull it out. And also just some background stamps to get you going. So what I'm going to do on this one is a little bit of stamping. So let's start with our Versify. Now when you're stamping, you do need to be on kind of a cushy surface. Lots of people sell different things, but if you are starting out and all you have at home is a mouse pad, go for it. So you can stamp it once, then you can do a second generation, even a third one, or a fourth one. Doesn't matter. You are just creating and covering your own background. So just stamp all the ink off of that. And when you're stamping, you don't have to use the entire stamp. You can get a portion of it and stamp where you need to. There, we've got our background covered. Now, if you want to put something on top of that, feel free to do so. If you are fastidious about cleaning your stamps, a little Windex on a towel will do, or some plain water, but Windex will get it off and it won't wreck your stamp. Or you can just keep stamping until all of the ink is gone. But I know it bothers some people if they don't clean it, and I'm one of those people. Okay, so that's gone. So I've just completed my scoring on this, and I'm going to bring back in my Flavia one because I want you to see what I'm doing. So when you open this, I can see that here and here are going to be my two solid spaces, and these two won't be. So whatever I stamp, depending on how I want it to show, if I'm opening it this way, then I'm going to stamp in this direction. If I have it on my page and I want it to come out this way, then I'm going to stamp my pieces here and here. But regardless of how you do it, it's still going to fold down into that small amount of space. This is where you get to be your most creative self. So looking at mine, and from where I've scored it, I have it like this. Here, I'll go ahead and fold it. That will make it a little easier to see. And then there's my other half. So now I have an idea of where I'm folding, because these two are is where my diagonal line goes through. So this leaves me here as real estate if I want to stamp it this way, or here as real estate if I want to go up and down. And I think on this one, I'm going to go this way. But I am going to go ahead and just stamp in this ombre because, you know what, it's sitting here. So let me fold one more for you again. Remember, I made one this way, only did one diagonal. And I'd say for ease of motion, once you do this, just go ahead and fold it back the other way, because that's just going to make your card a bit more flexible. So now I know I want mine to go this way. So over here, I am going to have this piece. And I need it to fold that way. So this one will get glued on top of here, because this is going to come up. Then this will do the same thing on the other side. There we have solid to solid, and then we're going to have another solid piece to solid piece. And there it is. Let's see if I can come out a little bit. Yep, and then I am going to grab some glue, and we're going to glue it into place. So there we are. And again, if you have that stamping block, bring that in and it will also push that glue into your paper. So now we have it, and we just need to get it folded together. Right here, these are going to fold in just like they would on an explosion card. Right? Then, so over here, this is going to do the same thing, except they are going to come in this way so that your house is on the inside, your little camper one. Let's turn it over. Same thing. These are going to push up into the center, and that's there. And there I'm going to pull it, and it is just going to expand out, and it's up the right way. Now you also have this part is real estate, and this part over here too is real estate. All of this can be done, but I wanted to stamp that so you could see how it came together. So let's fold this again. I already know these two pieces are going to push in like this. I'm going to take these two where I have the diagonals for. I'm going to push those in, and it automatically folds up. Just loves to pop into place. These two diagonals are going to come in this way. So let's push those two in. Oh, look at there. Now let's turn it over. These same two are going to come in. Push them in. It automatically comes. There you go. On the explosion, you normally do 2 diagonals and you fold in those tips. We didn't do that on here. We did not need both of these diagonals. That's what was able to give us this beautiful square. So now, opening in your mini album or in your card. All of that real estate that can get pushed down into a little small card, because this was an 8x8 piece of paper. So you can make your card 4x4, and when the recipient gets it and they open it up, they're like, wait, what? Wait, what? What? They got all of that in here? Oh man, this is cool. So this is a great way to send parents a little mini album. Again, this started out from me being 7 of 8 kids in a family and not wanting to take up all of the table space. So I could pull this part open, read it, close it back, and then I can pull up my last part, read it, and close it back. And I've taken up just a plate size space. Now, this is something I did with my students when we were studying parts of a plant, and I do try to help them be creative in how they're writing everything. And again, this is one of those, don't take up a whole lot of space on the kitchen table. So I just did it as a foldable. And we drew pictures. These are my pictures that I drew. So we had our flower, and then we talked about the fruit of a lemon, the part that contains the seeds. Oh, and I need to glue this back down because mine's falling off. It's so old. And then we did different kinds of seeds, where I did some peas and beans. And then here I talked about leaves and how they provide food for the plant. I think this is about 10 or 12 years old. It is. And then when you flip it over, here we talk about the stem, and that's where I made a mistake when I was typing this up for them. And so I had to correct it. This was my sample I made. So I corrected it. They got one without the scratch out on it. Where we're talking about the stem. And then over here, we were talking about the roots. And then over here, we were talking about the root hairs. And so again, if you have to review for your test for parts of a plant, you don't have to take up a lot of space on the table because everything is condensed for you. You're just simply flipping it over, and what you need is right there. And that's the beauty that I love about this. We don't always have room to spread out. So this can keep me at the table talking with my family as I study and not taking up all of the space. But wait, there's one more thing I want to share with you before you go. So when I first started out, I actually did have a plan for this. I planned to have a finished card, but this video is long enough. So here's what my plan was to take this cutout, and again, this is from the ornament set from Elizabeth Crafts Design. This one, they're really, really cute. And put it here. It's in your scrapbook or in your mini album, so that when you open it up, that inside, you can go ahead and take some other hearts that you've cut out and glue all of those down so that you would have a really, really pretty, elegant card on your hands. Thought that was really cute. Okay, and then you can, again, stamp your background, put whatever you want in there. That was my plan for the hearts. And then my plan for the butterfly was very similar. I went ahead and cut these out. Now, this is what I used for my template. I did make it nice and sturdy. If you wanted to trace around it. So then you could put this here, or if you wanted, you could also emboss the butterfly that would go here on this side, pulling it open. Then you would do the same thing inside of here. But oh my goodness, can we just like cry for this? Because it is, oh, so gorgeous. This is your explosion card on steroids. I absolutely adore this. One other thing before you go. When I went to emboss this into my solid piece, into this, two ways you can do this. When I first did it, I laid it down like this, and I got the indentation where it was concave. Then I was like, oh, but I wanted them to pop up. I wanted them to be convex where they pop up. So I had to put it underneath with my rubber sheet. And so it pressed up into it and pushed it to the top side. If that's the look you want, hey, great. Put it underneath for top side. Put it on the top if you want to press in to the piece. And this is just some of the foil jot paper that I use from Dollar Tree. And that's what I use to cut out all of those. I love that paper. But friends, we're at the end, and this is it. This is the explosion card on steroids. As always, thank you for joining me in the Learning Lab. Please be sure to check out my blog at incollusions.blogspot.com. Until then.